This episode of Hero Club is supported by our good friends over at Mage Hand Press. Check them out at magehandpress.com and be sure to buy their masterpiece supplement for Dungeons & Dragons in space, Dark Matter. Use the promo code RIFTRATS, all one word, for 15% off. If you like Hero Club, remember to rate and review on your preferred platform and tell your friends. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Hero Club. I'm Nick Williams.
And I am George Primavera.
George and I have been playing D&D together for years.
Now, a lot of people think you need to be a big, huge nerd boy to play Dungeons & Dragons.
But in reality, you just have to be willing to spend 4 hours of your own time on a weekday trashed on cheap beer cross-legged around a coffee table.
I lost a game of Flip Cup in 2012, so I had to buy all the books and learn how to be Dungeon Master. My dad was disappointed.
Yeah, he was. But after a game or two, we realized that it's actually a really fun and effective way to tell an awesome story.
Yeah, it's like long-form improv, but you kill more people.
Here's what you need to know. George creates a world and the framework for a cool story.
And the players, like Nick, create characters beforehand, all with special abilities, sometimes magical, sometimes not, and they adventure through the story as best they can, trying not to die.
We, the players, roll dice to see if our improvised actions fail or succeed, trying to beat a number in George's head that he promises he doesn't change at will.
But at the table, I am God, my game, my rules.
Okay, so it's as nerdy as you thought. You know what? Just off, man.
Oh,
right off,
all right,
okay?
Nick, maybe don't tell everybody to F off. And it's not that nerdy. I mean, we get rid of all that stupid math, and we add music and sound effects and stuff like that, so, you know, it's cool.
Anyway, these stories do follow a linear plot, so if you want to know what's going on, start at the beginning of any season you like and have fun with it.
Without further ado,
welcome to Hero Club! Yeah!
The year is 1930. The place, Roanoke, Virginia. A motorcade of police vehicles struggles up the hills of Goggins Holler, puttering as the road turns to dirt and the air gets thinner. In the rear car, John B. Darrow, the sheriff of Franklin County, Virginia, puffs on a cigarette as his deputy, Saul Tucker, shifts the car into gear. They are on their way to execute one of the largest moonshine raids in Virginia's history. Saul wraps his fingers nervously on the steering wheel.
If you're trying to play a tune there, son, you're doing a poor job.
I've never seen a night like this before, Sheriff. Sorry if my nerves are getting to me.
You just worry about driving the wagon, Tucker. Ain't nothing special about tonight, save for the task at hand.
Hey, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you go back with this Barlow Reed? Don't you have some type of history with this man?
We fought in the Rough Riders in Cuba together.
So you telling me this man has nerves of steel?
If memory serves.
Didn't you arrest him once before?
John B. takes a long drag on his cigarette before putting it out and tossing it out the window. That's correct, Tucker. Only time he made the error of committing a crime in my jurisdiction. 1919 for the murder of Hank Potts. Now, Potts was no saint himself, but murder is murder. Unfortunately, case got thrown out due to lack of evidence, though I don't imagine the judge at the time was looking too hard. Reed was a good fighter. I ain't looking forward to being across from him instead of next to him.
Night is falling, and the little firelights of burning moonshine stills fleck the mountainside like orange stars. The trees stretch upward with clawing bare branches. Each automobile in the motorcade breathes steam into the crisp, chilly night. Finally, the ground begins to level out, and an enormous house looms ahead at the far end of a massive driveway. The bungalow glows in the night with an eggshell coat of paint, 2 stories high with enormous carved doors and a wraparound porch. Several figures appear to be loading a couple of trucks with crates, and the figures freeze as the police round the corner. Several of them find cover and hold rifles aloft, staring down the barrel, though they are silhouetted by the lights of the house. The cars screech to a halt in a semicircle, blocking the exit, and a couple of high beams flick on, illuminating the driveway.
Goddamn hellfire. Bursting out of the screen door of his house is a shaggy bear of a man, sporting a tattered, quilted barn coat, beaten to hell flop hat, and a pair of boots he's resoled himself 6 or 7 times. He trudges across the porch, down the first 2 steps, and drops the crate of guns that he was carrying from the house. Boys, you know I always like a visit from y'all, but we ain't entertaining tonight.
Well, can't you make an exception for an old war buddy? John B. steps out of the car, dusting off his gray suit, under which he wears an Argyle wool sweater vest because of the fall weather. His clothes are all clearly kept in good condition, but none of them are new. He looks out from under the brim of his silver belly open road hat at Barlow Reed.
Several police officers jump out of their cars, taking up defensive positions behind them, and point their rifles at the young men taking shelter behind Barlow's trucks.
Barlow shields his eyes from the headlights to get a better look at who was talking to him. Well, shit. As I live and breathe, is that John B? Has that been you blowing up my still last couple weeks? That was fine work, nice and fast. You always were an efficient son of a bitch.
Oh, pshaw, Barlow, you know I can't take no credit. It was a good tip.
Saul Tucker gets out of the car. He has the slightest limp in his left leg, a wound from World War I. His khaki uniform is capped off with a slightly too polished deputy badge pinned to his overly puffed chest. He makes his way over to the sheriff. Hey, Sheriff, looks like we outnumber them. We got their pants around their ankles.
Well, that's good, Tucker. Why don't you and those boys just keep an eye on those fellers behind the trucks there?
Barlow, ever so subtly, turns to his sons, hiding behind the truck. How long you say before your friends are coming?
Dewey and Duffy Reed slowly emerge from behind the truck, looking up at their father on top of the porch. Duffy is a hulking beast of a boy, with a frame just like his old man and a slightly vacant expression across his face. Dewey Reed follows behind Duffy, a much smaller, more feeble-looking boy who uses the truck to support himself, his legs bent slightly inward.
Not for another at least an hour or two, Pa.
Yeah, Pa. You know this jackass.
Well, of course I know this jackass. Boys, this is John B. Darrow. He and I served in the Rough Riders together when your pa was just 19. John B., these are my two sons, Dewey and Duffy.
Well, Barlow, where's Miles? Ain't there a third one, the youngest boy?
All of the pleasantries drop, and Barlow's face hardens into a grimace. You get his name out of your mouth. Now, are we gonna do this fucking thing or not? I don't have all night, John B.
John B. recognizes the look that has come over Barlow's face, and dons one of his own. Well, that's up to you, Barlow. Me and the fellas here, we're taking everyone, one way or another.
You're goddamn right we are. Better put those guns down before we poke some holes in your chest.
John B. whips around at Tucker. Tucker, you best watch when you use the Lord's name, do you understand?
Saul's expression drops like a chastised puppy dog. I'm so sorry, Sheriff. I didn't mean to embarrass you in front of your old Rough Rider friends. He just looks like a fighter and I got nervous.
It's all right. He is. You just watch the language, you hear?
You got it, Sheriff.
Another officer stands at John B.'s other flank. Are we gonna get going with this or what, Sheriff?
Oh, we're going, Coughlin. Barlow, the fellas and I are gonna come inside and have a look around. Any contraband we find is gonna be coming with us down to the station, along with all of y'all. You are under arrest for the illicit production and sale of alcohol.
Officers begin to stream forward towards the house.
Well, boys, looks like we hogtied.
Pa, you really just gonna let them walk right into our house?
Pa, they look corn husk soft to me. I think we could take every single last one of them if you let me at them right now.
Stand down, Duffy. I ain't losing another son tonight. Barlow puts his hands on his truck,
and his boys follow suit. Saul walks past Barlow and makes eye contact, shivering a bit as Barlow's gaze pierces him to the core.
Barlow spits at his feet.
Saul tries to make his way past the trio without incident.
As he passes, Duffy looks up from the car and barks at him loudly.
Oh, dear God. Oh, sorry, Sheriff.
John B. chuckles as he cuffs Barlow. Torturing my deputies, are you?
Nothing being given that weren't earned, John B.
Well, I suppose I'll let your boys have their fun on the way to the jail cell.
You won't be doing a lot of barking behind those jail cells.
John B. returns Barlow's stare. He's doing his best.
I didn't think they made piglets that small.
Saul scurries into the house to avoid any more confrontation.
Wow, this place is huge, Sheriff. How much alcohol are you selling?
John B. walks Barlow to the open back of the paddy wagon, a pit of uneasiness sitting in his stomach. This whole thing went too easy. Barlow, I really do wish we were reconnecting under better circumstances. Watch your head.
Barlow remains silent, and sits in the far back of the paddy wagon.
The officer, referred to as Coughlin, takes Duffy and Dewey and puts them in the back of a different wagon. There's a little bit of commotion from inside the house. A couple of officers are bringing forward crates full of moonshine. Emblazoned across each crate, in fancy letters, is written, Reed's Quick Silver. The officer, referred to as Coughlin, opens one of the jars, takes a little sip. Ooh, sharp as an arrow all the way down. Suddenly, there's a shout from inside the house.
Saul busts through the open door. You gotta see this right now, Sheriff.
John B. rushes inside.
Upon entering, John B. sees that a couple of the officers have had the color drained from their face, shaking their heads and staring at each other. They stand adjacent to a doorway with a staircase leading down into a cellar. One of the men sits down on one of the chairs in the beautiful living room, holding his stomach.
I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life.
It's down here, Sheriff. You gotta see it for yourself. Fair warning, it's grisly.
John B. barely acknowledges anything that's just been said, pressing through down the staircase.
With each step, there's a loud, resounding creak. The old wood puffs dust up into the air with each bootfall. Saul flicks on a flashlight behind John B., illuminating the stone walls and old wooden furniture. Rounding the corner into the cellar, amidst crates and crates of moonshine, is a long table with a white sheet over it, clearly covering a body. Spots on the white sheet are dyed red, mostly in the midsection of the corpse, which is yet unrevealed.
John B. bends over and lifts the sheet.
And you see Miles Reed, the youngest son of Barlow Reed. This is by no means the first body John B. has seen, although he does note that the twisted expression on the boy's face is unlike any he has yet come across. Pulling back the sheet a little further reveals long, deep gashes in the boy's chest, and it is revealed that the boy's entire midsection has been torn asunder. Some of the gashes are so deep that you can see the boy's spine gleaming white beneath.
Boy doesn't look a day older than 19.
While you were in Europe, you ever see anything like this?
I've seen wounds before. I've seen bullet holes, one in my own leg. I ain't never seen nothing like this.
Me neither.
Both of you roll a medicine check.
7.
16.
Saul stares dumbfounded, but John B. analyzes the body a little closer and gauges that each gash appears to be about a finger's width apart.
You know, I once saw a man dead from a cougar attack when I was 16, but these gashes are too far apart. I can't say for certain what did this, but whatever it was big. John B. turns and looks up the stairs and shakes his head, perplexed. Get some men down here to take this poor boy away, and turns and walks up the stairs.
John B. makes his way out of the big house, and several officers carry the boy's body, the sheet placed over it, down the stairs, and into a third wagon. They load it up, close the doors, and all begin to hop into their respective cars, their trunks and their passenger seats now filled with crates of moonshine and other contraband. John B. and Saul get into the cab of the wagon that Barlow is in the back of. 7 cars turn their ignition over and begin to pull around the massive driveway and head back down the hill of Goggins Holler.
Barlow's voice comes from the back of the wagon. I suspect you found my boy.
We did. Anything you'd like to say on that subject, Barlow?
Well, when your boys look a little harder, they're gonna find that a lot of them bottles is broken. Steel in the back of the house is smashed. Me and mine were loading up to get to the bottom of it ourselves, but I have a pretty good idea of what happened.
Illuminate me.
Would I be right to assume that you've been getting a lot of calls about the Talbot gang last 6 months or so?
Yeah, I heard of them. They're that new bootlegging gang coming out of Craig County.
That's right. Piglet knows his stuff, John B.
Now you stop calling me Piglet! Sheriff, do something!
John B. turns and looks at Saul. Excuse me?
He can't be talking to me like this. I am a deputy.
And you'd like me to shut him up for you? Is that it, Tucker?
I realized my mistake. I spoke out of line, and I would like to apologize to you, Sheriff.
Accepted. Drive the truck. John B. turns back to Barlow. Continue.
Me and mine stay in Roanoke County for the most part, except for a little bit of running up to the city.
Sure. Get to the point, Barlow.
Well, last 6 months or so, this Talbot gang come in and starting edging into our territory. And, that's par for the course, I understand. Turf wars like these, they strike at us and we strike back. That's just kinda how it goes. So last night, we get a little bit of a tip. The Talbot gang is selling hooch in our territory right across the river, squarely in Roanoke County. So I get the boys all riled up, we jump in our trucks and we head out fast. Not a man left in the house, except for Miles. Now Miles, he was coming back for a little bit of a weekend visit from his freshman year at Alabama Polytechnic Institute, which it's a big deal for our family. We ain't never had no Reed men and no college. I mean, hell, myself, I only went to high school. I barely passed before the war. And Miles, he never wanted no part of the business that we in. He was a good boy. And, long story short, that tip turned out to be a bust. We got back to the house with our tail between our legs and found the place ransacked hard. And I found Miles. Well, you saw him. By the time I got there, he was gone, but I know he suffered. And that blood will not go unpaid. You mark my words. Them Talbots gots to pay. I don't know what kind of man would do such a thing, but it ain't right, John B. I know you got your opinions about my way of life, but I ain't never done nothing like that to no kid.
Before John B. can respond, one of the cars at the very front of the motorcade begins to swerve a little bit.
Hey, Sheriff, what's going on up there?
And as the motorcade begins to descend on a long, curved road, the lead wagon careens off of the path, busting through a guardrail, rolling down the hill, and slamming into a tree. All of the cars immediately come to a stop, police officers disembarking and casting flashlights down the canyon.
What is it? What's going on?
Shut up! From between him and Tucker, John B. grabs the Henry rifle resting on the car seat and turns to his deputy. Watch him. Stay in the truck. John B. exits the wagon and goes to investigate.
Holy shit, what the hell was that?
Michael, you okay? Michael!
You see anything? Shit, Daniel was in there.
John B. reaches the edge of the canyon and peers down and sees the car wreck. The black automobile is crumpled at the front, having hit a massive tree at tremendous velocity. Smoke rises from a small fire that seems to have sprung up in the engine. Suddenly, the driver's side door opens, and a man stumbles out, falling into the leaves below.
That's Michael. Michael!
I'm all right.
You get away from that automobile, son. It's gonna blow.
Daniel's in the back. Hold on. Daniel, you okay? What was happening back there?
The policeman begins to hobble to the rear of the van. You can see that he is in bad shape, clutching his ribs and limping severely. As he reaches the back of the wagon, he pulls a latch and realizes that it's stuck.
Daniel, what happened back there? I gave you one job. Just hold the body down, make sure it doesn't flop around on the curb.
At first glance, it looks like Michael has pulled the door open with great strength, but it becomes apparent as a dark figure springs forth from the back that it was kicked open from the inside.
What's happening?
And Michael is tackled into the leaves.
Oh, shit! What the? Ah! Oh, man! Oh.
Fire at will! John B. lets loose on the dark shape. 13.
The roar of 15 guns firing down into the canyon deafens everyone, and this dark shadow of a thing that is now sitting on top of Michael's chest holds up a very human-looking arm, albeit a little bit crooked and perhaps a bit too long. It shields its face from view and scampers into the woods, disappearing into the night. As the flashlights refocus, landing on Michael, you see a bloody mess and a face that is aghast with horror.
Oh, shit, Michael!
John B. points to the two closest deputies and starts carefully making his way down to the body. You two, come with me.
Saul busts out of the car at the sound of gunfire and rushes towards John B. What's going on, Sheriff?
Tucker, get back in the wagon and watch the suspect.
Coughlin's on it. I'm with you now.
Fine, with me. John B. continues down the slope.
Saul manages his way down the slope with John B., maneuvering a little bit more carefully because of the limp in his leg.
The first thing that you notice is that Michael is still alive and clutching his throat. His eyes dart back and forth in terror.
John B. pulls out his handkerchief and starts to try to stop the bleeding. Oh my word. Son, what did you see? Can you speak?
He can't appear to get any words out. pulling the handkerchief away for a brief second reveals almost his entire larynx has been torn apart. Michael lifts one hand shakily and points to the back of the wagon. Following his point, you see that the back of the wagon, when illuminated with a flashlight, is covered in gore. An arm hangs out the back, limp, and following the arm a bit, you see that it isn't attached to anything. A closer investigation of the back of the wagon reveals Daniel splattered across the interior like paint. You can tell it's Daniel because of the decapitated head that has rolled under one of the benches. Miles's body appears to be gone. The white sheet dyed completely red and sopping wet.
Hell, Sheriff, I'm not sure this is some work of a bootlegging gang.
No, Tucker, I don't suppose it is. John B. addresses the other two deputies he's with. Keep pressure on Michael's throat, but mind the airways. Don't move him. We'll get assistance down to you as soon as possible. Saul, with me. John B. makes his way up the slope and makes a beeline to the back of the wagon containing Barlow Reed. He throws open the door and pulls Barlow out.
What was all that shooting, John B? You see a squirrel or something? Whoa, what the hell? Ugh. Barlow stumbles out of the truck and falls on the ground, still restrained by his handcuffs.
What the hell? That is some question to be asking me right now, Barlow. Now, you're certain your boy was dead by the time you got back?
You kidding me, John B? You saw him yourself. You know what a dead body looks like. I know you do.
I do, which is why, Barlow, I am at a loss as to one of my men is dead, another dying, and your boy's body is nowhere to be found.
What do you mean nowhere to be found? What did you bastards do to Miles? Barlow gets to his feet and attempts to bowl past John B., trying to look where the truck has gone.
Both of you roll grapple checks.
Botch.
15.
Barlow shoots past John B. before he has a chance to react, and Barlow sees the grisly scene below. A couple of the officers are standing over Michael, shaking their heads.
What did you do to my boy, John B?
John B. joins Barlow at the edge of the embankment. Nothing, Barlow. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Sheriff, he didn't make it.
Peering down into the canyon, you see Michael staring up at the sky, glassy-eyed. His chest is still.
John B. hangs his head and then gives an order to the rest of his men. 1 man per vehicle stays here. Everybody else, load up and come with me. Weapons and ammunition only. We're gonna find the thing that did this.
John B., you need me with you. Plus, this is my son. I know this holler better than anyone else. You honestly gonna leave me here?
No, Barlow, I ain't. John B. unholsters his revolver and holds Barlow at arm's length. Now get walking.
We're going to take him? Why would we ever take him?
Well, you heard the man. He knows the woods better than any of us. We need us a guide. And besides, if that's the thing that took his boy, he deserves to help put it down. Whether or not there's a jail cell waiting for him on the other side of all this.
That sounds like a whole bunch of bullshit to me, Sheriff. Who's to say this isn't one big setup?
Now, Tucker, you are more than welcome to stay with the vehicles if you wish. But we are moving out right now. John B. pushes Barlow along and continues down the embankment.
This is some real bullshit, John B. You've seen what that thing can do. You're just gonna lead me into the woods all shackled like, unable to defend myself?
Oh, don't you worry, Barlow. Me and all my big, strong friends will protect you.
And the squadron of police begins to disperse into the woods, pairing up and covering as much ground as possible. Barlow trudges through the woods, hands in front of him, cuffed tight, while John B. points a revolver at his back. Saul, a little moody, follows behind with his head hung low.
It's cold as hell in these woods.
John B. keeps Barlow in his sights, but slows up a little, so that he is matching pace with Deputy Tucker. Listen, Saul, I didn't want to shout at you back there. You're right. Who's to say this isn't one big setup? But if it is, and John B. gestures toward Barlow, it's a setup with him at the center of it. And no matter what, I ain't letting him out of my sight. How we doing on them tracks there, Barlow?
Barlow, roll a survival check.
15. Got a little bit of blood here. Some big tracks. Looks like a dog or something. You say this thing was a dog?
Didn't say what it was. Now keep moving.
Watch your step up here, Piglet. It gets a little bit rocky.
You shut your damn mouth before there's more blood on these leaves.
Ooh-wee, looks like Piglet's finally getting his first tusks.
All right, let's both of you watch the conversation there.
The leaves crunch underneath the three's feet as they trudge deeper and deeper into the dark woods. A very fine mist creeps across the ground, and beams of moonlight fire through the canopy in swaths, peppering the dark ground with little glowing patches. The wind picks up, and everybody pulls their jackets a little tighter around them. John B., deep in the pit of your stomach, you feel a sense of foreboding. The more you walk through the woods, the less comfortable you feel, and the hairs on the back of your neck begin to stand up. The trees begin to thin out a little bit, and you see the edge of the tree line, which leads out into a massive clearing. As you approach it, Saul quickly pushes your flashlight down to the ground.
Hey, something up ahead there.
John B. flicks his own light off and lets his eyes adjust to the dark, searching for what Saul pointed out.
Everybody make a perception check.
3. 10.
Nat 20.
While Saul and John B. struggle to see in the dark, Barlow's eyes adjust immediately. He peers out from the tree line, and down a small hill, there's a clearing filled with burnt-out grass, just now getting a little bit frosty from the cold night air. After about 40 feet of worn grass, there's a dark, placid pond, and at the pond's edge, kneeling in the dirt, is what appears to be a very tall, humped man, hands cradling its head. Long, low whimpers resound across the clearing.
Barlow wheels on John B. John B., you better take off these goddamn handcuffs.
Shut up. Yeah, that's right. Why don't we take off the handcuffs and send the criminal in first?
You are sentencing me to death if you don't take off these handcuffs right now. Do you even see what's out there?
It looks like a man, and sounds like a hurt one.
That ain't no man, John B. You take off these cuffs. Barlow turns to Deputy Tucker. Deputy, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about this. You are going to want more hands. We ain't none of us gonna survive this if I can't help.
Address my deputy again, Barlow, and I will discharge this weapon.
Sheriff, with all due respect, he's making some good points.
The clouds shift overhead. The wind rustles the leaves a bit, and as the clouds move out from in front of the moon, bright moonlight illuminates the creature kneeling at the pond's edge. Its hurt moans turn to a mournful cry. The creature resumes its kneel after pitching its head up towards the sky and shivers quietly in the dirt, its hands now gripping into the dust.
Sheriff, if you don't take his cuffs off, I will.
Saul, I want you to flank around the edge of the clearing on the right side. I'll be taking Barlow with me the other way. Do not act until I do first, or until your safety is threatened. Do you understand?
Yes, Sheriff.
Good man. Go.
Saul leaves, creeping through the underbrush, and John B. and Barlow are left alone.
John B. grabs a handful of Barlow's jacket and nudges him the other way. Come on. John B. takes another look out at the creature, put on edge by how emphatic Barlow is being.
The moon disappears again behind some clouds, and as you all look again, moving around the flank of this creature, it seems more and more like a regular person, just kneeling in the dirt, gripping the ground tightly. The unnatural moans are becoming a little bit more recognizable, like cries.
Good Christ, that's Miles. Barlow pushes John B. back and breaches the clearing. Miles!
No!
The figure whips around, and it's Miles. Tears streaming down his face, blood across his torso and face, gripping his stomach tightly.
Pa! It hurts!
Oh my lord, Miles! Barlow sprints towards his son.
Miles Reed, don't you move a muscle. Franklin County Sheriff's Department.
Saul busts out from the clearing on the other side, gun aloft.
I'm gonna kill this motherfucker!
You will do no such thing, Deputy. Just keep your gun trained on him.
This man was dead and now he's alive again. I need to kill him for one last time, Sheriff!
Do not fire. Do you understand me, Deputy? Do not fire.
I'm firing!
Saul's finger trembles on the trigger. He fires the gun. 18.
A bullet slams into Miles's back, and he gasps and goes still.
Miles! Miles! God damn you! God damn you!
John B. sprints at Barlow, trying to get to him before he can rush Saul.
Barlow, you hear some quiet murmuring from your son's mouth.
What'd you say, son?
You gotta get out of here, Pa. I can't hold it back.
John B. puts a hand on Barlow's shoulder. Move away.
Miles's head picks up. His eyes, once a dark forest green, are now a bright yellow. His teeth are misshapen and drool begins to spill down his bottom lip.
What in the hell?
John B. reaches for his teeth. You wanted to get uncuffed, your wish is granted. John B. unlocks the handcuffs binding Barlow.
There's the cracking of bones as Miles' elbows appear to snap inward.
John B. backs up, trying to pull Barlow with him. Get back!
Barlow, his hands now free, smacks John B. away. That's my son, goddammit!
John B. gives up on trying to pull Barlow away, but holsters his pistol and slings his rifle around, continuing to back up as he does.
Miles's shoulders expand outward as if the plates are being smushed inward and pulled apart. He looks up at the sky as the dark clouds shift once again and moonlight bathes him. Saul approaches, rifle raised. Miles's whimpering turns to low, guttural breathing.
This ain't no son of yours no more. This is some creature, and it's time to put him down for good.
Don't you touch him!
You stay back, Saul!
This ain't no him, this is a it.
Saul, keep your distance. Barlow, move away.
Barlow looks into the eyes of his son, and there is absolutely no glimmer of recognition. Miles looks into his father's eyes.
Miles?
A now gnarled hand shoots forward, grabs Barlow's shirt.
John B. opens up on the creature.
Saul opens fire as well.
Both chambers empty completely, bullets riddling Miles' body. He attempts to stand up, staggers a bit, and puts a knee in the dirt once again. He breathes one long sigh and stands up. Miles rounds on Saul and springs forward with an unnatural speed. As he does, you see that Miles' feet have expanded to at least 18 inches long and look extremely canine, ripping through the leather boots. With every stride, Miles seems to gain mass, his muscles expanding, his hair growing a little longer, his nails curling and growing sharp. He reaches Saul and attempts to knock the gun out of his hands. Saul, through sheer fright, manages to hold on to the rifle, but Miles, now adjacent to the deputy, raises a now massive clawed hand and strikes downward. Blood sprays forth into the grass as nails sharp as daggers cut into the deputy's chest. Saul takes 15 damage, bringing him down to 25 points of health.
Saul! John B. fires 2 shots at the creature that used to be Miles. 15 for the first, 13 for the second. 18 total damage.
He lurches with each impact, but otherwise makes absolutely no reaction.
Don't you kill my son, John B!
Get it off me! In a panic, Saul tries to bat the creature away with the butt of his gun. 14.
Miles' now grotesque face whips to the left as he takes the gun butt to the face, turns directly back to Saul, making eye contact, and growls with now massive serrated teeth. As he does, his jaw seems to break in place, unhinge, drop lower, and then jut outward suddenly. Miles' whole body convulses as if he's about to vomit, and suddenly his mouth and nose are much more of a snout.
Barlow attempts to reason with the creature. Miles, it's me, son. It's your paw. Just calm down.
Roll a persuasion check.
5.
Miles does not acknowledge you.
Barlow barrels towards Miles and attempts to tackle him to the ground.
Roll a grapple check.
17.
Miles rolls a nat 20, shirking Barlow off as easily as swatting a fly.
Ugh!
The beast steps forward slowly and ominously, Saul backing up and quivering. He lunges forward and attempts to bite Saul in the shoulder with his long serrated teeth. The teeth come down and there's a crunching of bone. And Saul takes 23 damage, bringing him down to 2 points of health. Saul has clearly gone into shock and appears to be fading as the creature shakes his shoulder viciously like an alligator with prey in its mouth.
No! John B. fires before rushing towards Miles and firing again at a closer range. 10 for the first one, botch for the second.
The first bullet just barely grazes the beast's back, whizzing off into the night. When John B. goes to take the second shot, the gun jams.
Oh, no. John B. furiously attempts to unjam his rifle.
Still stuck in the beast's jaw, Saul reaches for his pocket knife and attempts to penetrate the beast in the side. 13.
The blade pierces the beast in the side, and it lets loose a loud, long howl. And with hot and heavy breath, the creature, now slowly sprouting black hair all over its body, picks Saul up by the neck, holding him aloft.
Boy, I said stop! Barlow attempts to bash Miles across the head with a rock. 15.
Hit.
For 8 damage.
The beast doesn't react to the rock, still appearing preoccupied with the blade now stuck in its side. It glances behind it, kicking a foot back, trying to push the advancing Barlow away. Barlow easily dodges the foot. It looks down at its wound, tries to grab the blade protruding from its side with its free claw, but as soon as it touches it, there's the sound of the searing of meat on a cast iron skillet, and the monster pulls its hand away, still whimpering. It looks upward at Saul.
Please.
And jams its free hand forward, disappearing into the deputy's belly, and yanking outward. Saul goes limp and still almost immediately, with a long sigh of breath.
Sorry, Sheriff.
The beast holds a section of spine in its hand and drops Saul's limp ragdoll body into the dirt, now reeling backward, facing Barlow and John B. as it begins to stumble into the woods, still very preoccupied with the blade sticking out of its side.
John B. looks at his deputy's body in horror before his eyes flit to the blade in the creature's side. He rushes forward and attempts to drag it across the creature's torso.
Make a sleight of hand check to grab the knife and then an attack roll to use it.
15.
John B.'s hand grips the blade's hilt.
9.
As John B.'s hand grips the blade, the creature pulls back, and the blade makes a squelching sound as it's pulled loose from the creature's ribcage. John B. is left holding the little pocket knife.
Barlow attempts to grapple his son once more. 11.
Barlow manages to get the creature into a headlock of sorts as it reels backwards.
Sorry, son. It's for your own good.
The creature struggles against Barlow's grip.
21.
22. The now hairy, canine-like beast just barely jerks free, scrambling in the dirt for a moment, and then settling on all fours and bounding into the brush.
John B. drops the knife and lets the rifle hang limp around his shoulders as he rushes to Saul's still form. Saul! I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry.
Barlow walks over in a daze and picks up the pocket knife.
The blade is about 4 inches long, with a blood-stained hilt that looks to be made of a mahogany wood with a little bit of silver inlay, and a small inscription on one side. Happy Father's Day.
It's like this pocket knife was the only thing that could hurt him. Why the hell do you think that is?
I don't know, Barlow. I am hard-pressed to explain anything that has happened over the last few hours. John B. turns back towards his dead deputy. He's got a wife and 10-year-old boy at home. I have no idea what I'm gonna tell him.
Barlow throws the rock he was using to fight his son as hard as he can at the pond. God damn, John B., it ain't fair. Father should never have to bury his own son, nonetheless twice in one day. Those goddamn Talbots are gonna pay for what they did to Miles.
John B. looks up at Barlow, a quizzical expression on his face. What exactly did they do to your boy, Barlow?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, John B., they killed him.
Let's see that knife.
Barlow passes the knife over.
John B. examines it. Now, what's the difference between this little pocket knife and the multitude of bullets that creature shrugged off like they were mosquito bites? John B. looks down at the inlay in the handle and then his eyes go wide, and he looks back up at Barlow.
Before your very eyes, the inlay glows in the moonlight, and any blood left on the knife steams up and evaporates into the night air.
Silver.
The trip back to the road passes in somber silence, neither able to look the other in the eye, desperately thinking of what to tell the rest of the department upon returning to town. But when John B. and Barlow finally make it back to the road, they notice two things. First, that all of the cars are gone. Second, that the gaggle of men left to keep watch appear to be tied together in a heap on the trail's edge, utterly unconscious. John B. fumes in silent shock, and Barlow pipes up behind him.
Looks like the reinforcements came just in time. Ain't no hearth at home without a bit of coal. Without sinning, no redemption of the soul. White needs a black, but black don't need the white. 'Cause if you lose that darkness, where else can you hide? Can you catch me, friend, before I'm gone? Got your assignment, I'll need confinement for too long. Take your action, friend, and keep your weapons drawn, my friend. If you can't, then I will chase you. If I chase you, you won't make it till dawn.
This has been a Hero Club production, produced by Nick Williams and George Primavera, with associate producers Marty Abbey Schneider and Dylan McCullum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Marty Abbey Schneider, Nick Cafaro, and Dylan McCullum. Theme song written by Matthew McCullum and performed by Nick Williams. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for his incredible music, Mage-Hand Press for their genius D&D 5th edition homebrew, and Marty Abbey Schneider for his amazing artwork. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the club.
My friend, if you can't, then I will chase you. If I chase you, friend, you won't live to see the light.
The now hairy canine-like beast just barely squiggles. Nope.
Squiggles.
Ooh, excuse me.
Pardon me, mister.